Why is it that a barn built in 1912 has framing you can barely drive a nail into, and a deck somebody paid $11,000 for in 2019 already has a board that gives under your heel? Same species of wood, better tools, better fasteners, 110 years of progress in between. Sit with that a second, because the answer isn't what you'd guess, and it isn't lumber quality, and it isn't that they don't make things like they used to. Hollis Ward, Carter County, Missouri. I've torn down 4 outbuildings and put up 6, and I've made every mistake in this video at least once. Here's what I want you to have by the end. What rot actually is, and it's alive, which most people don't think about. The one number that decides whether wood lasts 8 years or 80. A mineral that costs $6 at a grocery store and will protect framing for the life of a building. And the exact place that mineral will fail you, which I'll tell you before I tell you anything else about it, because that's the part that decides whether this video is worth your Saturday. You know the board I'm talking about. It looked fine. It looked exactly like every other board on that deck or that porch or that fence line. Then one spring you set your weight on it, and there's that half-second of give that tells you everything before your brain catches up. You pull it, and the underside is the color of coffee grounds, and it crumbles between your fingers like dry cornbread. And the top face, the part you looked at every day for 6 years, is still perfect, still holding stain. That's the thing about rot. You don't watch it happen, you find out. And it's almost never where you were looking. It's the underside of the joist. It's the last 3 inches of a post where it goes into the dirt. It's the end grain where 2 boards butt together and hold a teaspoon of water between them for 4 days after every rain. It's the sill plate, sitting on concrete in a crawl space nobody's been into since the house was framed. The places you can't see are the places it starts, and there is a reason for that, and the reason is the whole video. Now here's what you've been sold to prevent it. A gallon of exterior stain or deck sealer, $40 to $70. You clean, you sand, you wait for 3 dry days in a row, you roll it on, and you do that again in 2 to 3 years, forever, for the life of the structure. Do the math on a deck. Say a gallon and a half every 3 years at $55, plus a day of your life each time. Over 20 years, that's $500 and about 7 working days. And here's what nobody tells you at the counter. A film-forming finish that isn't perfect is worse than no finish at all. Because the failure mode isn't that the water gets in. Water always gets in. Wood moves, it swells and shrinks with the seasons, and any coating on it eventually cracks somewhere. The failure mode is that the water gets in through a crack you can't see, and then the coating that was supposed to keep it out keeps it in. Now you've got a board that's wet under a sealed skin, in the dark, at 70 degrees. That's not protection. That's a terrarium. I've pulled deck boards that were rotted underneath and still had a beautiful even coat of stain on top, and every one of them made me a little angrier than the last. So let me tell you what's actually eating your wood, because I think most people picture rot as a thing that just happens, like rust. A chemical process. Time doing what time does. It isn't. It's alive. Wood rot is a fungus. Not a mold, not a stain, a fungus. A whole organism, with a body made of threads that grow through the wood, dissolving the cellulose and lignin and eating them. That crumbly brown material in a rotted joist is what's left after something finished a meal. And here's the part that changes how you think about the whole problem. Those fungi are not something you can keep out. The spores are in the air right now, in the room you're sitting in, everywhere on Earth where there are trees. Every board on your property already has them on it or in it. Every board. You are not defending a wall. There's no wall. What you're doing, the only thing you've ever been doing, is denying a meal. And a wood decay fungus needs 3 things to eat. It needs the wood, and you can't help that. It needs a temperature above freezing, and you can't help that either. And it needs water, in a specific amount, which you absolutely can help. That's the whole fight. It always was. Here's the number, and it's the most useful thing in this video. 20%. That's moisture content, the weight of the water in a piece of wood, expressed as a percentage of what that wood would weigh bone dry. Fresh-cut green oak might be at 80%. Framing lumber delivered to a job site is usually somewhere around 15 to 19. Wood inside a heated house settles around 6 to 8. Below about 20% moisture content, wood decay fungi cannot function. Not slowly, not at all. They need free liquid water in the wood cells to work, and below that line, there isn't any. There's a related number worth knowing, called the fiber saturation point, right around 28 to 30%. That's where the cell walls themselves are saturated, and any additional water starts sitting loose inside the cells as liquid. That loose water is the fungus's water. So now go back to that barn from 1912. It has a roof with a real overhang. It sits up on stone or on a raised foundation, so no wood touches dirt. It's open to the air on the inside, so anything that gets wet dries. The framing in that barn has probably never once, in 113 years, gone above 20% for long enough to matter. Nobody treated it with anything. Nobody had to. It's been dry since Taft was president. Now, here's the other half, and it's the one that catches people. End grain. The cut ends of a board where you can see the growth rings, where the fibers were sliced across. A tree moves water from its roots to its leaves through long vertical channels. And when that tree gets sawed into lumber, those channels are still there, still open, still perfectly good at moving water. They just don't have anywhere to send it anymore. End grain absorbs water on the order of 10 to 100 times faster than the face of the same board. It's a bundle of straws pointed at the sky. So every place two boards meet, every post top, every cut you made with a saw and then installed without another thought, that's where the water goes in. The tree's own plumbing is doing it, and it's still working, and it will keep working for the next 80 years. That is why rot starts where you're not looking. It starts at the ends. If you've torn out a rotted deck or a fence line, tell me in the comments where it had failed first. I'd put money on it being an end, a joint, or something touching the ground, and I want to see if I'm right. Now the $6 part. It's a borate, borax, boric acid, boron compounds, the same family as the thing in the white and green box in the laundry aisle. In the trade, the standardized version is disodium octaborate tetrahydrate, DOT for short. That's the active ingredient in the products a pest control operator carries, sold under names like tim-bor and bora-care. It's EPA registered. It meets the American Wood Protection Association's standard P5. This is not folk medicine. It's a listed structural wood preservative with a standard number attached to it. Two things make it different from anything else you can buy at a hardware store. The first is what it does. Borates interfere with the metabolism of the organisms that eat wood, decay fungi, termites, carpenter ants, powder post beetles. They don't repel them. The organism takes the wood in and can't process it, and it dies. It works at very low concentrations. The research puts full protection somewhere around 0.2 to 0.5% boron by weight of wood. The second thing is the one that actually matters, and it's why nothing else works this way. Borates diffuse. Every other preservative you can brush on sits where you put it, a 1/16 of an inch of penetration, and that's the end of it. Scratch it or saw it, and you've exposed raw wood. Borate doesn't stay put. Dissolved in water and brushed on, it migrates through the wood on its own over the following weeks, following the moisture, spreading out into the middle of the timber, where you could never reach with a brush. And here's the piece that's completely backwards from everything else in construction. It penetrates better into wood that's damp. The wetter the wood, the deeper the treatment goes. The condition that makes wood vulnerable is the condition that lets you protect it. Now, before I tell you where to buy it, I'm telling you where it fails, because I'd rather you turn this video off now than waste a Saturday. Borate is not fixed in the wood. It's water-soluble, and it leaches. That's not a defect somebody's hiding. It's in the industry's own standards. Borate-treated lumber is rated for what they call Use Category 1 and 2. Above ground, protected from liquid water. That's the whole envelope. So, fence post in the dirt? No. It'll be gone in 2 seasons. Deck boards out in the rain with nothing over them? No. Anything in ground contact ever? No. But framing inside a shed, sill plates, crawlspace joists, barn timbers, studs behind siding, log home walls under a finish, trim under paint. Anything that gets damp and then dries but never has water running over it. That's where a borate sits in the wood and does its job for as long as the building stands, because there's nothing there to wash it out. That's not a consolation prize. That's most of the wood in every structure you own. So why hasn't anybody at the lumberyard mentioned this to you? There's no conspiracy, and I won't insult you with one. There are two reasons. They're both plain, and the second one is the one that ought to bother you. The first is that the industry absolutely does know. Hawaii's building code requires borate treatment because they have Formosan termites, which are the worst in the country. It's in the model codes, it's got an ICC report number, it's in the AWPA standards, and there are 10-year field trials on it out of the University of Hawaii. Nobody's hiding a thing. It's just filed in a place a homeowner has no reason to look. The second reason is the shape of the retail business. Think about what a borate treatment is as a product. It's a mineral you dissolve in tap water, brush on one time, and then never think about again for 40 years. Now think about a gallon of deck stain. $55, every 3 years, forever. And it's on an end cap in April with a display. One of those two supports a business. It isn't the mineral. And then there's what happened in 2003. For 30 years, the answer for any wood a homeowner put outdoors was CCA, chromated copper arsenate, green pressure-treated lumber. Decks, fences, playsets, picnic tables, landscape timbers, all of it. And it worked, because arsenic works. On March 17, 2003, the EPA finalized a voluntary cancellation with the manufacturers, and after December 31st of that year, CCA could no longer be used to treat lumber for virtually any residential purpose. Arsenic is a known human carcinogen, and children were playing on it. That was the right call, and I'm not arguing it. But look at what happened next. The public was handed a substitute, copper-based treatments, which cost more and eat galvanized fasteners, and nobody was retaught anything. There was no moment where the country got told that the actual mechanism is moisture content, that 20% is the line, that end grain is where it starts. The formula on the label changed, and the understanding never came back. 2 generations of homeowners now believe that wood protection is a liquid you buy in a can and reapply until you die. Nobody suppressed the mineral. They just never had a reason to bring it up. Here's what to buy. A box of borax. 65 ounces, laundry aisle, $6 to $8. Sodium tetraborate. A pound of boric acid, $8 to $10, pharmacy or online. You want this in the mix because borax alone doesn't dissolve well in water, and boric acid pushes the solubility up so you can get a strong enough solution to be worth brushing. Mix them roughly equal by volume. Then dissolve into hot water. Hot, not warm. It makes an enormous difference. About a pound of the combined powder per gallon, stirring until the water won't take any more. If it's clear, you're good. If there's grit in the bottom, add hot water. That's it. $6 to $18, depending on whether you buy the boric acid, and one batch treats the framing of a good-sized shed. The upgrade, if you'd rather buy it standardized, a bag of tim-bor or a jug of bora-care, $25 to $60, from a pest supply house. It's DOT. It dissolves better than anything you'll mix yourself. It has a label with rates on it, and if you're treating a whole crawl space, it's worth the money. Same chemistry, more of it, done for you. Things you also need: a cheap chip brush or a pump sprayer, nitrile gloves, and eye protection. One thing worth $20 that isn't a preservative at all: a pin-type moisture meter, $20 to $30 online. It'll tell you the moisture content of any board you stick it into. Once you own one, you stop guessing about the only number that matters, and you'll find the wet spot in your own house inside a week. Bare wood only. This has to soak in, so anything already painted, stained, sealed, or varnished has to be stripped or it's wasted. New construction before anything else touches it is the ideal moment. 2 wet coats, and the second one goes on while the first is still damp, not dry, damp. You want it to keep moving inward, not to sit on the surface and crystallize. Flood the end grain, every cut end, every board end, every post top, every place 2 pieces meet. Get the brush in there and let it drink. If you do nothing else on this whole list, do the ends. Prioritize in this order, and this is exactly the order the damage comes in. Anything touching concrete or masonry. Anything within 18 inches of the ground. Sill plates and bottom plates. The undersides of joists, rim joists, then everything else. Do it on a day above 50 degrees so it doesn't just sit there. Then leave it alone for 2 to 4 weeks before you paint or seal over it. The borate needs that time to diffuse in. Paint it the next morning and you've locked it on the surface. If you're top coating, an oil-based primer or a solid stain over the top is fine, and it's actually the right combination for exterior trim. The borate handles the biology, the coating handles the water, and neither one is being asked to do the other's job. And on existing rot, this does not fix rot. Rotted wood is gone. It doesn't come back and it never regains strength. You cut it out to solid material, you treat the cut ends of what's left with borate, and you fix whatever was keeping it wet. If you skip that last part, you will do this again in 6 years. Fast, in order of how much trouble it causes. Ground contact. I've said it twice and I'll say it a third time because somebody's going to try it anyway. Do not put a borate-treated post in the ground and expect anything. Buy ground contact-rated lumber for that, or use steel post bases and keep the wood up out of the dirt entirely, which is the better answer regardless of what you treat it with. Uncovered horizontal surfaces in the weather. Deck boards, rail caps, stair treads. Water sits there, the borate goes with it. Treating over a finish. Wasted afternoon. Painting over it the same day. Wasted treatment. Cold water. It won't dissolve properly, and you'll brush on a weak solution and think it didn't work. Now the safety, and I'm going to be straight rather than either scary or breezy. Borates are considerably less hazardous to people than what they replaced. There's no arsenic and no chromium in this, but they are not food. Don't ingest them. Keep the powder and the solution away from children and pets. Wear gloves because it'll dry your hands badly, and wear eye protection because getting boric acid solution in your eye is a bad afternoon. And this one gets missed. Boron is toxic to plants at concentrations well below what's in your bucket. Do not pour leftover solution on the ground near a garden bed, a tree, or anything you want to keep. Use it up on more wood, or let it evaporate in the bucket somewhere out of the weather. Label the bucket. Same rule as the last video. One thing, not 10. This Saturday, take the $6 box of borax and go treat the framing inside one building. A shed, a barn, a garage, or a crawl space if you've got one you can get into. Hot water in a 5-gallon bucket. Borax and boric acid until it stops dissolving. A $3 chip brush. Start with everything within 18 inches of the floor. The bottom plate. The bottom 2 feet of every stud. Anywhere wood meets concrete. Every board end you can reach. 2 wet coats, second one while the first is still damp. That's maybe 90 minutes and the cost of a sandwich. And then, while you've got the light on in there, go find the water. Look at the roof edge. Look at where the ground grades toward the wall instead of away from it. Look at the 2 boards butted end to end with no gap between them holding a dark stain. Fix one of those this month. Because the borate is the cheap insurance and the drainage is the actual cure. And if you only ever do one, do the drainage. Next week it's the soap, rendering fat and boiling it down to a bar. I'll tell you now that the wood ash lye part of that story is going to get the same treatment the egg video got, because you can't measure the strength of ash lye, and that matters more than the romance of it does. Treat the shed first. Werner used to say, you don't keep a building dry by painting it. You keep it dry by finding out where the water thinks it's going. Go stick your hand under a joist somewhere and see if it's wet. That's all. Just go feel it.